Few people these days argue about the benefits of HIIT training, high-intensity interval training. It restores the microvasculature, those capillaries that go into the large muscle mass, and protect us, our best internal protection from prediabetes and diabetes. But here's what people debate about and they argue about. How do I know? How do I know that I'm getting a high enough intensity? How do I know that my heart rate's enough? How do I know that I'm breathing heavy enough? Just watching this video. How to tell whether or not he was doing an effective HIIT training. I use an Apple Watch. It's close enough. As I mentioned, I provided a little bit more detail on the HIIT training and practical aspects of it a few minutes ago, and it provided a little bit more in writing than we discussed. One of the items is, how do you know what your heart rate is? And I usually use this visual in terms of how hard I'm breathing, because there's not really a good way of measuring heart rate when you're up at that level of exertion. I used to be a long distance runner, and many times I've invested in different types of heart rate monitors. Some worked and reliable for HIIT training, but it didn't work very long. For example, one of them had the chest strap, and it's hard to keep that chest strap to where it's tight enough and it's working effectively. I'm currently using an Apple Watch, as Robert Weiss said, and yeah, it helps somewhat, but you have to develop a feel of how you are. One of the things, a key component that I'll give you is during aerobic running, people will say, oh, you need to be able to talk to a friend or you need to be able to hum. Not with high intensity intervals. With high intensity intervals, you're doing this. You just cannot talk or anything. You're just gasping for breath.
One thing I do, and maybe it's because I have access to it and I have used it before, but with COVID, it got popular, the use of pulse oximeters. So they're not sacked, but you can also, after the effort, you just put the pulse oximeter on your finger and it can give you a notion of how many oxygen do you have and what's your heart rate.
Yep. So there are these, and I would recommend just doing those, the simpler methods like that, and get a good idea. You start to understand. Even on the treadmill, most treadmills now have a thing you can clamp your fingers down on. The problem with those is you can't really clamp your fingers while you're running that hard. So you have to estimate based on your cooling down and your heart rate slowing down and where you think it would have been.